Greetings, Commanders, and glory to mankind. 4 topics to talk about today. The launch of Powerplay version 2, the Mandalay, where I finally have had enough experience with about 6 or 7 hours in actual combat experience against Thargoid interceptors to form an opinion about the ship. Even though I'm still working on a proper review video of the ship, happy to share some initial thoughts since there's a lot of interest around the ship. An update on the Thargoid War, and some general observations and commentary around the new feature. Powerplay 2 is pretty much what I personally expected it to be, which is not a significant or material overhaul of the fundamental mechanics of Powerplay. It also launched with predictable calibration issues with the turning in of exploration and exobiology data to having a disproportionate effect, which was corrected by suspending it before reintroducing it in the game. It's still very possible to min-max activities in the game. Like, for example, you may have heard the news that Pranavantal was kicked out of the Pleiades. Let's see. We had, in the end, 332,000 versus 183,000 merits in that particular battle. And of those 300,000, 100,000, so a third of the total, was one single commander, Commander Xarian. So it is very possible still to very much move a needle, even as a single commander, if you're determined and if you have the time to do it. The way to do it has shifted, as the initial approach was to dump exploration and exobiology data. That was addressed. Then people started hauling carrier loads of rare goods. That is still somewhat viable. Then people were grinding Powerplay ships at nav beacons. That is still kind of possible. And people figured that you could turn in escape pods for a major input and reward, and that is currently the activity that rewards the most merits. So still plenty of calibration to happen. I haven't personally pledged. I don't find the game play of Powerplay particularly enticing, and I also don't want to be hunted down by random hostile ships while I'm doing other things that I actually care about. So save surprises chance. And by the way, I also have all the Powerplay modules already, so I don't care for those. And so, considering my primary activity in the game is anti-xeno combat, it is likely, or more likely than not, that I personally will remain unpledged. But again, if you find the gameplay interesting and you like it, more power to you. So that's the state, and that's the update on Powerplay 2. The Mandalay IX. Now, that's a topic I'm excited about, as I have actually enjoyed my time in the Mandalay quite a bit. Originally, I was planning to make the next Bug Smasher videos about the Federal Corvette, but my time in the Mandalay has convinced me that the Mandalay deserves to steal the spot from the vet. So apologize to Corvette lovers out there, but the Corvette episode of Bug Smashers is going to be delayed to make room for the Mandalay version. I spent quite a bit of time in the cockpit of a Mandalay fighting primary Hydras in a standalone basis, but I've also taken it to combat zones in a variety of configurations, primarily using Gauss cannons and Garden Shard cannons, the modified version of Garden Shard cannons. And I have to say, we'll talk about performance in a minute, but besides performance, the ship is a lot of fun to fly. And it's really fun to fight in the Mandalay, because the Mandalay handles extremely well. It yaws incredibly well, which is something that the Crate can only dream of doing, and the Chieftain only does to a moderate degree. It is quite fast, with reasonable acceleration, and has a pretty nice cockpit and view. So combine all the things together, and it's just fun to fight and fly in the Mandalay. So that's a factor that has kind of like driven me to kind of using that ship quite a bit recently and spending more time than I originally anticipated I would in the Mandalay for anti-xeno purposes, since it's clearly not designed as a fighter. It's designed, obviously, and as stated, as an exploration ship with its main goal in mind. The characteristics of a ship are such that had this ship come with a Class 7 power distributor, we easily would have had the best fighter in the game. Alas, it didn't come with a Class 7 power distributor. In fact, it didn't even come with a Class 6 power distributor. It came with a meager Class 5 power distributor, which effectively balances it out to a degree and places it in a spot which is quite remarkable. So now, it used to be that you had, on one hand, you had the hard-hitting crate, which hit hard, but was kind of hard to fly in a solo kind of combat setting. And on the other hand, you had the Alliance Chieftain, which didn't quite hit as hard as a crate, but was a lot easier to fly. Now you've effectively added a third element into that spectrum, where you have the Mandalay, which is even easier than a Chieftain to fly, but hits even less hard than the Chieftain. So now you really have a spectrum to say, hey, I want the most agile ship that's the easiest to fly. I can pick up the Mandalay, knowing that certain things will be harder to do with it, especially once you get to challenge tougher interceptors. Or you can still fly with a Chieftain or a crate, and those are kind of known quantities overall. But I went from thinking, this ship really doesn't belong in my hangar because its power distributor is too small, to I can see myself taking this ship out for a spin every now and then after I used it to, this is actually quite fun. I'll spend more time than I thought in this ship. So that was my personal journey over, again, 6 or 7 hours of combat experience in the Mandalay. So yeah, so again, whether it's worth it in terms of buying it out of early access is entirely up to you. It does not do anything in combat that existing combat ships are able to do. So in that sense, it's not a game changer. And as one of my videos in a conversation with Ricardo's highlighted, it's definitely not a effective Titan bomber. Like as a Titan bomber, they are clearly better ships no matter how you look at it. If you're looking for an agile, fast ship, then the Mamba is superior. If you're looking for a ship that hits hard, then the Titan Mark II is superior. If you look at for an all-rounder that does just about everything better, then the Crate Mark II is superior. So this is not a Titan bomber. That's one thing that it is definitely not suited for. But as a solo dual type ship or for combat zone use, you can use it. Typically with Gauss in a solo setting, and typically with shards, with modified shards in an anti-Xeno setting. So more on this once we put out the formal review video, which might take a while considering it's very busy at work and home during the end of year period, but we'll see what we can do. Now, on to the Thargoid War. One Titan remains. Koshige is still out there. Last time I checked, it was down to just above 80 systems controlled, and progress over the last year was remarkable with 33 systems cleared. The progression slows as the number of systems reduces, as the effort required to clear system increases, which means that there's still going to be time before Cohere becomes vulnerable. My guesstimate is somewhere in the mid-December type of range is going to be when the final assault and campaign against Titan Cohere will begin. We also would love to plan a major party. Now we won't, count our chickens until they hatch, but assuming we are successful in taking down the final Titan, we'd love to throw, hopefully, the largest party that the game community has ever seen. So stay tuned for more information pertaining to that. And finally, some additional commentary on the new feature that was announced that was branded colonization. I generally keep referring to as base building, as ultimately and fundamentally that is what it's going to be about. It starts, and it is originally introduced with the concept of establishing stations and building out space assets in a given system. Everything we've seen, though, points at the establishing of planetary bases and planetary settlements as a factor associated and involved with that feature. So we'll see. Like when we'll get into the next Frontier Unlocked in December, we are bound to hear more about their plans with regards to that feature. But it is a feature I am quite excited about. Unlike Powerplay 2, I think it is something that will introduce a meaningful dimension with meaningful gameplay loops. So again, I am personally excited to see what they're working on in that regard. That concludes our update for today. Glory to mankind, Commander Mechan, over and out.